In the autumn of 1972, in a dive bar in Sunnyvale, California, a machine broke down. It was a strange-looking thing, a wooden cabinet with a black and white screen tucked between the peanuts and the jukebox. Nobody had seen anything like it, and a few days after it arrived, it stopped working. So the bar called the company that made it. An engineer drove out to take a look. He opened up the machine, expecting a blown circuit, a loose wire, something he'd have to solder back together. That's not what he found. The machine wasn't broken. The coin box was so completely stuffed with quarters that it physically couldn't take another one. People had been feeding it all day, every day, until the money jammed the mechanism solid. That broken machine was called Pong, and the company that built it was about to start an industry from nothing. This is how Atari came to life. To understand that bar, you have to go back a few years to a kid working summers at an amusement park in Utah. His name was Nolan Bushnell. Through college, he ran the games department at Lagoon, a park outside Salt Lake City, working the Midway arcade. It sounds like a small job. It taught him something most engineers never learn: exactly how people part with their money for fun. He watched which games drew a crowd, which ones sat dead, and how a single coin slot could print cash if the game was right. Then, at the University of Utah, he saw the future. The university had a PDP-1, one of the room-sized computers of the era, and running on it was a game called Spacewar. 2 ships, a star, a duel fought in pixels. Bushnell was hooked, and standing there, he had the thought that would define the next decade of his life. What if you could put a game like this in every bar and arcade in the country? What if people could drop a quarter into a computer? There was just one problem. The computer that ran Spacewar cost more than a house. You couldn't put that next to a pinball machine. So Bushnell set out to do the impossible version of his idea: build the game without the computer, recreate it in cheap hardware that a bar owner could actually afford. He didn't do it alone. He partnered with an engineer named Dabney, a quiet, brilliant man whose work on the video circuitry made the whole thing possible. Dabney rarely gets his name in the headlines. He should. Together they built a coin-operated version of Spacewar, and in 1971 it went out into the world through a company called Nutting Associates. They called it Computer Space. It was the first mass-produced coin-operated video game ever made. It was beautiful, this curved fiberglass cabinet that looked like a prop from a science fiction film, and commercially it landed with a thud. The reason is the most important lesson in this entire story. Computer space was hard. Spacewar had been built by computer scientists, for computer scientists, and the controls carried all of that complexity with them. A guy 3 beers deep at a bar would walk up, read the instructions, get confused, lose immediately, and walk away. The game asked too much. Bushnell had the right instinct and the wrong execution. Most people would have taken that as proof the idea didn't work. Bushnell took the opposite lesson. The idea was right. The game just had to be simple enough that anyone could play it drunk, on the first try, with no instructions at all. So in June of 1972, he and Dabney went out on their own. They put up $250 each, $500 total, and started a company. They wanted to call it Syzygy. The name was already taken by a roofing firm, so Bushnell reached for a word from Go, the ancient board game he loved. In Go, when a stone is one move from being captured, you say it's in Atari. The name stuck. Now Bushnell needed someone to build their first real game. He hired a young engineer named Al Alcorn, fresh and talented and completely unaware of what he was walking into. Bushnell handed him a simple assignment: build a game with a ball, 2 paddles, and a score. He told Alcorn it was a warm-up project, a contract for General Electric, just something to get his feet wet. That was a lie. There was no GE contract. Bushnell invented it to keep the pressure low and the creativity high. The practice project was the whole company. Alcorn threw himself at it, and because he was trying to make a basic ball bounce between 2 lines feel good, he added little touches nobody asked for. The ball sped up the longer a rally went on. The paddle was split into segments so you could angle your shots. Small things. They turned a math demonstration into something with rhythm and tension. The entire instruction manual was 1 line. Avoid missing ball for high score. That was it. That was the genius. After computer space buried itself in complexity, Pong told you everything you needed to know in 6 words. To test it, they did the obvious thing. They put the prototype in a local bar, Andy Capp's Tavern, on a Tuesday, and waited to see if anyone would touch it. You already know what happened next. The machine filled with quarters until it choked. When Alcorn opened it up and found the coin box overflowing, that wasn't a malfunction. That was a signal. People weren't just playing Pong, they were lining up for it. They were coming back the next day, and the day after that. Atari had its answer. They stopped trying to sell Pong to a distributor and started building the machines themselves in a converted roller rink as fast as their hands could move. Orders poured in. Within months, there were thousands of Pong cabinets across the country. In bars and bowling alleys and pizza places, each one a small machine quietly printing money exactly the way Bushnell had imagined back at that amusement park. A 2-man company with $500 and a borrowed idea had just done what the giant electronics firms couldn't. They'd made a computer game that anyone, anywhere would pay to play. The video game industry didn't slowly emerge. It switched on. And the switch was a wooden box in a California bar, jammed solid with quarters. Here's the thing about that overflowing coin box. It wasn't the finish line, it was the starting gun. Everything we think of as gaming, the consoles, the arcades, the billion-dollar franchises, all of it traces back to 2 engineers, a $500 bet, and the radical idea that a game should be simple enough for anyone to love. But the company that taught the world to play was about to grow faster than anyone could control. Bigger games, a console in the living room, a buyout that made the founders rich, and then, just a few years later, a collapse so complete they buried the evidence in a desert landfill. That's the next part of the story, and it's where everything goes wrong. If you want to see how the kings of the arcade nearly took the whole industry down with them, subscribe, and we'll pick it up right there. This has been Giants and Gadgets of Tech.